What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Carpool Gaming for this wonderful extra mile here on the PlayStation Drive, where we're going to be talking about our new game of the year. I'm joined, as always, by the Supreme Court of Canada himself, Mr. Court Lalonde. What's up, dude?
I can't wait to talk about this game. I only finished it literally 24 hours ago, and man, I laughed and cried a lot.
I'm 100% with you. Obviously, this is going to be all about God of War Ragnarok, but before we get into the nitty-gritty details, if you're watching this live, well, not live, actually, this isn't live. If you're watching this on youtube.com/carpoolgaming, thank you so much. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, hit that bell so you're notified when things happen, you know, and you can come check it out. If you are listening to this on your podcast service of choice, make sure you like, subscribe, share, follow, leave us that 5-star review. We appreciate it very, very much. And if you have a couple extra bucks to toss our way to tip yo drivers, head over to patreon.com/carpoolgaming, and out comes a cornucopia of content when you put money in the big old carpool piggy bank. We appreciate all of you, but without further ado, dude, I have been dying to talk about this with you. God of War Ragnarok. It's coming out very, very soon on PS4, PS5. But before we get
the day everybody's listening to it, it comes out that day.
No, the day everybody.
This is the 8th. This will come out on the 8th.
Oh, that's right.
Yes.
We'll talk about it after.
This comes out on the release day.
Ooh, spicy. Well, this comes out on the release day then, and as everybody is jumping in, we are here to give you our thoughts. Everything will be spoiler free, so you don't have to worry. We're not going to be touching on a lot of the details of the game because we want to make sure that the experience is intact for you as it was for us. And once again, huge shout out to PlayStation Canada for hooking us up with the review codes. We appreciate each and every one of you very, very much. But Court, before we get into Ragnarok, I think it's good that we lay the foundation here. Have you played the original, well, quote-unquote original, the 2018 God of War? What do you feel about that game, and how did you feel coming into Ragnarok?
So I have played it on the PlayStation 4, finished it when it came out in 2018, loved it. I thought of all the series, God of War was one of those ones where everybody always was like, Calliope, like they made fun of it. You know, Greg Miller was famous for always doing that Kratos voice and making fun of the game over and over and over again. And it was kind of just a hack and slash, and there was nothing more to it, and there was no depth to the game. Besides the F scenes, everybody always joked around because you could have sex in it, and just that was like the thing for God of War, right? There's a lot of blood and gore, and there was sex scenes. That was just it. And then in 2018, there was that first trailer we saw. I believe we saw the trailer in 2016. It was at Game Awards. I can't remember. You know, correct me if I'm wrong. It's fine. I know we saw the trailer and it's just Kratos. And you just, oh my God. You have that oh my God moment. Like, this is not the game that the last one before that was, I guess, Ascension. It wasn't that game anymore. And after playing it, I remember on day and date launch, there was one of those games where at like midnight when it's loading up and I can play it, I was blown away. That first time you have the Leviathan axe fly back into your hand, you're like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever. There was a lot of aha moments. They redefined the genre of the single player story driven game in 2018 with that game. And it automatically, within an hour of playing it with you, like, well, it's game of the year. Nothing can beat it. Like, this is the game. And that was the experience I had with God of War. The story was touching. And now when I look back on it, I'm like, maybe the story wasn't even as good as the one we just played. And which I'm in shock to even say it out loud. But I just found a lot of everything, the way they did the puzzles and the way they did their semi-open world was genre defining. And so it was a lot of pressure to make a sequel to a genre defining video game.
I'm 100% with you. God of War 2018 is one of my favorite games of all time. I was never a huge fan of the originals, like you mentioned. Like, it was just, I'm not a huge hack and slash in terms of like that second to second fast paced combat. I'd obviously played 1, 2, and 3, never really touched the mobile ones. But again, I always remember looking back on those games being like, yeah, they're fun. But you know, that's pretty much all that they were to me. So coming into 2018's God of War, I think really showed the industry, and I'm a little shocked that we haven't seen more of this happening, but that you can take a series and reinvent it entirely to make it even better than it was before. They were not afraid to take away a lot of the elements of the originals that wouldn't work as well in this day and age. Give Kratos an actual personality. Give him an actual storyline. Make you genuinely care about a character that you did not care about before. All he was a vessel to commit murder. And with God of War, they completely changed all of that. And it became one of my favorite games of all time. The story is incredible. Like you mentioned, the Leviathan axe and especially the recall is one of the most satisfying mechanics in any video game ever, I'd honestly argue. It's just the fact that they went in and they said, we're going to strip away all the parts that don't make sense anymore while still pay homage and bring back other elements of those originals to make this new God of War feel epic, feel spectacular, feel incredible. So I played it back when it came out, played it again on PC, messed around with it again on Steam Deck. Like, this is one of those games that, like, I feel like you could come back to every couple of years and still have an incredible experience. So like you mentioned, coming into Ragnarok, there is a lot of hype, there is a lot of pressure, and there is a lot riding on this game to say, hey, does this warrant a full-blown sequel? Is this something that carries on the legacy or pushes it in an even new direction? And I have to say, resoundingly, yes, God of War Ragnarok is the follow-up that God of War 2018 needed and deserved. They take the story in surprising and fun new directions. They up the ante on their gameplay. The world building and everything else around it is utterly fantastic. So I'm just so glad that this game exists, and we'll get into this a little bit, but I am really happy with the overall product, and it is my game of the year so far. And it's just, I can't get over how good this game is, Court. I cannot get over how good this game is and how you could cherry pick so many different moments of it to be your favorite moment. I really do feel like a lot of people will have a different favorite moment from this game, and I think that's an incredible achievement.
Yeah, and I don't even think you can even, like, what other game is going to come out that could? And I don't think I can't even name one. It's game of the year. I messaged you after about 4 hours into it. I was like, well, it's game of the year. And then after the final credits, I was like, wow, this is resounding. Like, could be better than 2018. I can't believe I'm saying it, because I just felt they did such a great job with the story. And I'm not going to give it. It was so compelling. I laughed. I cried. I said to you, I cried. I just cried. Like, I couldn't believe it. They punch you in the face right off the bat. And that was one of the things they did in 2018. They humanized Kratos for the very first time at the beginning of 2018 story. They did. There was a section of it, and I'm not even going to give away 2018 God of War, because I truly think you still need to play this game before 100%. You play Ragnarok. They do allow a story recap if you want to watch it, for the people, I guess, that either wanted a refresher or haven't played it. But I truly feel, to get the sense of the story and the depth that they go into, and to feel the emotions you feel throughout this, you truly, truly, truly need to have played 2018. Because once again, like I said, it does humanize Kratos. It introduces a cast of characters that you're going to see over and over again, and some of them in different aspects in this game. In Ragnarok, you have Atreus, who's now your son, who didn't exist before in any of the games. You didn't, you knew Kratos had, his sex scenes, but you didn't know anything happened from it. So. Yeah. And they really do a great job of humanizing Kratos all over again. So I just think that the story, which I can't really talk about, but because I don't want to do that to you, was one of the best stories, and a very big crescendo to the series, because they're saying they wanted to end that storyline. And oh my God, like, I did have that issue where I messaged you at one point, and I thought there was that pacing issue, and you'd already played past it, and you were like, don't worry. And you were right, 100%. I felt it was like, oh, what did I need this for? And then I realized near the end, I'm like, oh my God, so that was crucial. It's just one of those things where you're playing this game. I think my playthrough was just over 30 hours. I looked. It was like 31 point something. That's me. I was playing a ton of side missions, as you know, and then I mainlined it for the last 5 hours. Because you already finished it before me.
Yeah, I'm in a similar boat. It took me about 26 hours. I did a bunch of the side content. I argued probably in like the first 2/3 of the game, and the back third, like, I just kind of mainlined it because I wanted to see where it was going. But I think you touch on something really important there. I definitely think you can play this one if you haven't played the original. I would never advise you to, though. This really does feel, and this isn't to take away of the quality of Ragnarok as a standalone game, but this really does feel like part 1 and part 2. This feels like your Infinity War and your Endgame. Both of them totally stand in their own rights. Both of them totally work as separate games, but they are so incredibly interconnected. Like, this isn't like an Uncharted 1, Uncharted 2. You can go into any of the Uncharteds and benefit and have a great time, and you'll learn about these characters as you go. the way that these two games are so intrinsically intertwined, I don't really think you can separate them. And I think that if you went into Ragnarok without playing the original, you would definitely lose out on a lot of context, a lot of the character moments, a lot of the ways that you see there's like lines that are repeated in this game compared to the first one. There are moments that are like reflections of the first game, and none of it ever feels cheap. None of it ever feels like, oh, haha, we're just doing the same thing again. It doesn't ever feel like that because of the gravity of what's going on, because of the character moments, because who is saying these lines and in what context. If you do Ragnarok without the original, I feel like you're missing a huge aspect of what makes Ragnarok so special. And I think you kind of need to go into it. So we've touched on it both, Court. We've both talked a little bit about the story. And again, we're not going to spoil anything, but tell me what you think of the story of Ragnarok and how did it hit you?
It's funny because of so many sequels in video games. It's almost like they're set up to fail. And especially, like I said before, the 2018 God of War was unbelievable. It's just like when they do Ghost of Tsushima, when they make that sequel, it's going to be tough to follow. I had my doubts. I just thought I was going to get more God of War, especially because we're getting a PS4 version of this game. And now I actually am glad there's a PS4 version. I know how hard it is to get PS5s out there, and I know how much everybody wants their 4K. I want the best version of this game, but not everybody can afford to go out and get a new system. And some kids won't even be getting it till, Christmas. And it's just, you really have to look at the grand scheme of things and how big this game is. So the fact that everyone can play it, whether you have a PS4 or a PS5, I think is unbelievable because this story it sucked me in right at the very beginning. Like I'll spoil it. That's not a spoiler because I won't say what happens, but you're going to cry within like the first 5 minutes unless unless you're a dark soul. Okay. Yeah. Unless you're just cold hearted. Like it gets you right off the bat. And it's just like, wow. And then one of the things that I loved about 2018 was it redefined what it was to have a boss battle. It gave those movie moments like you were talking about Endgame and such and put them in a video game. And what does God of War Ragnarok do? They're like, hey, spoiler alert, we're going to do better. And you're like, what? How? You didn't think it was possible? And they were like, yeah, we can give you better boss battles. And they give you not just one, not just two. They give you a ton of boss battles throughout. And they give you mini boss battles. They give more depth. And when you're having these mini boss battles or boss battles, you either hate or love characters. And you have a feeling for them. They're not just this thing that pops out of nowhere. And most tropes in a video game where there's just, you have a boss battle against this thing, you don't even know what it was. And then all of a sudden you see this giant health bar come across the screen. They did that a lot. And I also love the fact that it made fun of itself throughout the game. I'm not going to say who, but there's a character in there that literally makes jokes about you collecting items and doing this and doing that. Or you think, oh, I did this in the last game. And they're like, oh, no, well, technically it was like, it's like almost like it could like hear your thoughts. And
it's very meta.
I really enjoyed it because it made that character also way more fun to have around throughout the game. So it was just like, all right, well done. I just thought it was start to finish very, very well done. Like I'd already played previously my game of the year was going to be The Last of Us, the remaster. Even though it's an 11-year-old game, I was like, you can't top a game that's a defining of a generation. And I'm going to say it. I think God of War Ragnarok is better than God of War 2018. That is my take coming out of this. I might be all by myself on this, but I couldn't believe how good it was. Like I texted you I couldn't believe how much I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Like I walked away from that going, wow, that was like, I'm still playing it. Usually I finish a game, credits roll, and I'm like, I'm done. I'm like, all right, it's not that I want to go get the platinum. It's that I want to go do more because you're going to do more after. Credits are going to roll. That's not the end of the game. There's more.
I'm 100% with you, and like I do want to address like you mentioned the whole PS4 PS5 thing. I've seen some people saying like, oh, it feels like an old game. It doesn't. The game looks beautiful. The story is fantastic, and like we've already talked about, this feels like the part 2 to the part 1 of the original. people that still are, again, PS5s are still not readily available. They still are tough to find. Yes, they are appearing more in retail, but it is not something you can just go out and easily buy one, let alone different people have different financial situations. The PS4 is still one of the top selling consoles of all time. And this, again, feels, especially thematically in the way that they build on and connect to the original. I'm glad that this exists on the space where the original came out so that people don't have to wait to experience it and don't get spoiled on a lot of these very special moments, which I'm sure we're going to see get spoiled very, very quickly if it hasn't been already. So I'm glad that it exists on PS4 so people can experience it there. And I'm with you, dude. Like, I do think Ragnarok is better than 2018's. I'm 100% with you on that. They take everything that they built with 2018 and hit the ground running. There's not a lot of the who's this character, what's going on, where's this setup, what's happening. You know what's happening from the get-go, and that allows them to like raise the stakes immediately. That allows them to just go completely, out the window right from the get-go, and they're not afraid of those moments. The game is fantastic, and like you mentioned, I think one of the biggest things that should be celebrated about this game is how important the side quests feel, to the point where a lot of them could have genuinely been main missions, main story missions, because they tie a lot of the side quests to the characters around you. Like, even in the first area, like, Mimir says, like, oh, can we please do this? This is important to me. Like, these are things that connect the side quests to the actual characters that you're like, no, this feels important. Like, yes, I'm going to get some cool loot out of it. Yes, I'm going to get something that's worth my time.
Loot is very important. Like, I recommend everybody do all those side quests and do all that, because you need to upgrade your character. We'll get more into the upgrade system after.
Yeah. But like, that's what I'm saying. Like, they make it all feel so important. And some of the most beautiful moments in the game come from those side quests. Some of the most jaw-dropping, like, graphical achievements that they hit come in the side quests. Like, they feel important. And similarly to you, I'm the type of gamer that, like, once I finish a game, credits roll, even if I miss some side quests, if I'm doing it, I don't usually hop back in. Ragnarok immediately had me going back in and being like, all right, I remember I have to go do this. This side quest sounded interesting that I didn't get a chance to hop back over to. It makes everything feel important and feel worthy. And it's one of those games that, like, as much as The Witcher 3 is celebrated for its side quests, I think God of War Ragnarok is in that same echelon. All of the content feels like it matters, feels like it's important, and then rewards you for doing the things that you're supposed to be doing. It's excellent. The story is resounding. It's meaningful. They take a lot of, again, what they built with 2018 and then just hammer it home in a really stunning, fascinating, important way. I love what they did with the characters here. I love what they did with the story. And I'm with you, dude. I think it is better than 2018's, because, again, they built on already a near perfect game and took all of that and made it even more important, even more awesome.
Uncharted. Very rarely can you do a sequel to a game and make it better than the first. Uncharted 2 is better. It's not even arguably. And after playing, I was like, wow, they did it. Like, I'll still say till I'm blue in the face, Last of Us 1 is still better than Part 2. But that's fine. It's fine.
This is like the Last of Us
everybody
Part 2.
knows that's the fact. But God of War Ragnarok, wow. I couldn't believe it. I was like, okay, they actually decided, they were like, hey, because they jump you right back in. It's not like you're like, 20 years later. It's like, hey, 5 minutes after we finished the last one, here you go. It's right away. It's instantaneous that you're just into the game right away, which is the other reason I say you got to play it. But at the same time, it's where they were like, hey, we're just going to make it better. Those things that we wanted to do in the first one, we're just going to do them in this one. That's what I truly feel. They were like, hey, this is what we're doing. We're just making it that much better. And they were able to go more in depth with the story this time. And I think it's because they were taking a lot of chances in 2018 and they were putting in a game where, we've said it before, they didn't know if it was going to go through the roof like it did. And so they were like, okay, here's the vision we wanted to do. Let's put it in the game. And that's when you get this story, which after me playing it, I'm like, okay, so when's HBO making the TV show?
Right. I know it does sit in that Last of Us Part 2 echelon of games that are better than their prequels.
Well done.
But I do want to ask, because like I feel like we've talked a lot about the story, we've talked a lot about the world building, which is fantastic. Let's touch on the gameplay. And again, we're not going to spoil anything for you, because similarly, there's just a lot of incredible gameplay moments here that I don't want to ruin for everybody. But how do you think Ragnarok takes, again, what 2018 built and then changes it with the gameplay for Ragnarok?
I think some of it has to do with the upgrade system and your skill system. So in the previous 2018, you just had your skill system. You were able to craft armor, but you didn't upgrade armors. You were able to add amulets to it, but there wasn't this extensive upgrading system that we're dealing with now in the new one. They start you off with a lot of weapons. It's not like they still did the character amnesia. It's not spoiler, but like, guess what? Kratos forgets how to do everything for some reason 5 minutes after that's a video game trope. It's never going to go away. Someone was like, "Oh, you're going to make the guy super powerful." I'm like, "Well, no, but you could just add other things so they can." But anyways, that's my gripe, that I don't know what they do with that in video games. But I love the way both your characters, and this is in the trailer, gain experience. You're both gaining experience, so you're able to upgrade their skill that way. But if you don't go around and do those side missions we talked about and get all those resources and get all those extra things to craft, you're not able to upgrade your weapons or upgrade your armors. That in turn unlocks part of the skill tree. So I thought that they were able to do more in depth, and that's a huge differentiator. But then at the same time, not just the story of those side quests are amazing, it also makes you the reward. They reward you for spending more time in the world. A lot of the games, they just make you pick things up, and eventually by the end of the game, you're like, oh, well, I don't need half of this. I can just sell it all. They reward you that way, and also they allow you, for every collectible you find, in a lot of games, they make you hold them in your inventory. Well, you can actually go up and sell it all, but it stays in your inventory that you've already collected it. So I'm talking about the scripts and, the little collectibles that you find throughout the world. You can sell them, not your armors. Don't do that. All the collectibles you find, you can actually keep them still in your inventory that you've collected them towards your trophy count or such, but you're able to get hack silver for it. So you're able to go out and buy new things. So they've created this income system, and they've created this little mini game almost inside that you can do to make your character stronger. Because I'll be honest, I played it on baby mode. I upped the difficulty just a little bit to see what a boss battle was like without that. It's just nope.
Yep. And that's something that I ran into very quickly. So I did just play it on the standard difficulty. The game almost expects you to have played the original, especially because, again, a lot of the fights, even at the very beginning of the game, are a bit tough, and that scales up pretty quickly. Like, there's a lot of early game boss battles that you're like, oh, okay, maybe I did die a couple times here. I think I need to kind of, rethink my strategy here, or like, just keep going at it. Because I do think that while we do have the video game amnesia, I do like that, like, a lot of the prime skills are pretty cheap. You're able to acquire them pretty quickly, and then you move into new territory pretty quickly as well. They don't make you respec entirely, which I do appreciate. But like, the combat feels fantastic. The different ways that they've now incorporated the shields and the different types of shields. So are you more of a parry person? Are you more of like a sit there, charge up your blocks and your defense and kind of, wreak havoc
and the
that
parry
way?
matters now. Like, it actually matters. It does something.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like, they take a lot of the gameplay elements and they build upon them. They modulate them. They let you play with them in a way that they didn't let you before, and that just makes even Kratos as a character feel a little bit more spec to the way that you want to play the game, rather than just as the way that you have to play the game. And of course, there's a lot of things that happen throughout the experience that just, again, enhance all of that. We're not going to touch on any of that because, again, it deserves to be kept secret for you. But just know that the game does change as you play it. There are moments that make you completely change the way that you approach certain situations, and change the way that you, even in the gear that you use, you might have a different set depending on what you're kind of going into. You might want to upgrade multiple sets depending on the fight that you're kind of going up against. They take a lot of what they did with 2018's and they make it even better. The gameplay feels fantastic. I love how a lot of the combat arenas are now more vertical. A lot of 2018's combat arenas were very flat, just because, again, Kratos wasn't as mobile as he is, even just from the jump here. The fact that you're able to use, and again, this isn't a spoiler, we see it in a lot of the trailers, the chains to kind of like whip up to different areas very quickly.
Yeah, the traverse is awesome.
Exactly. Like, the fact that you're able to be like, all right, there are enemies here, there are enemies up there. how do I go about handling it? And I've had multiple moments where, like, I'm fighting enemies on the ground, whip up to a higher area, knock those guys back down to reach the other enemies, jump down, and completely like wipe all of them in one go with like a power attack as you're leaping. So even the ways that they changed that, and especially something that I want to shout out as well, is that there are unique combat finishers and animations depending on the weapons that you're using, depending on the enemies that you're fighting. They've really gone in and made the entire combat system feel, even better. I was using all of the weapons all of the time. In the first one, it was the axe the majority of the time until you got, the chains later on. But then even then, I found myself still using the axe a lot. Here, I was flipping between, depending on the situation.
Or
are you
enemy
fighting
type.
just
Certain enemy types you just couldn't use the axe on. Just it is what it is.
Exactly. So like, I love the way that they make everything feel important in a way that they did in 2018, but they make it even more so here. I just think that the gameplay as a whole is a fantastic way to upgrade what they've already done and make it better in a way that I was just kind of like, I don't see how they're going to do it. How can you take a already incredible combat system and make it even better? They do just that.
Yeah, I was a big fan of the yellow or the red to let you know, like, hey, you're not blocking this. Like, just get out of the way. And the way they made us put the puzzles, they flipped it on its head. They were like, yes, those same puzzles, like they did at some points at the beginning of the game, they made them easier so you could upgrade your character. It really felt like that wasn't hard. Like, I felt in 2018 they just made them all really hard. And then this one, as the game progresses and you go into the different realms, then they get harder, but you have to use, better way to say it, not combos, I guess, to figure it out, to get certain things done. And I'm like, wow, well done. Because it did, spoiler alert, to review a game without a guide is hard, okay?
Yes.
It's very hard.
Yeah. There were moments where like we both, like, I almost texted you a couple times and like we had all exchanges being like, how?
Yes.
How? And like, I do want to shout out one aspect. I did run into a couple bugs. And it was more towards the late game where certain characters weren't in the positions that they needed to be, and it actually stopped my progression. I had to reload checkpoints 2 or 3 times. And again, as soon as I reloaded the checkpoint, I was pretty close to where I already was, and it fixed itself, but it did happen a couple times. So if you do run, because there was one moment where I was like spent almost like half an hour on, and I was on the verge of texting you being like, what do I do? And I was like, let me reload the checkpoint, and reload the checkpoint, and everything kind of fixed itself. So just be aware, if you run into a point where you're like, I genuinely don't know what to do, try reloading a checkpoint. It could be an issue there. And I'm sure this is something that will be fixed quickly, but it is just that, like, it does, halt the experience in a really unfortunate way. Only happened 2 or 3 times, so it wasn't massive, but it was there for me.
Yeah, and I had a mini boss battle where the mini boss, his loot dropped, and it dropped where I couldn't get it. I was like, no, really, no. Why'd you do that?
But again, like the fact that this is such a massive game and we only ran into like a couple small issues that were easily fixed, fantastic. This game is just so good. Let's touch on the graphics and the sound design, because I feel like those are 2 major parts that we need to touch on before we head for the ending of this discussion. So, Court, how did the game look? How did it sound?
So I played it on the 4K 40. So I favored resolution, but then you can do, so it's funny. Everything got released, so this is not spoilers, that all the 4 graphical modes, but I really feel like it's just 2 graphical modes with 2 separate sliders that you can choose which way you want to go, because you had the performance or graphics, but then you could change a slider and say, I want the high frame rate, or I want the better graphics. So you could actually almost get the best of both worlds. So I believe as I was playing at 4K 40, but it wasn't locked in. And from what I understand, I can't wait to see the Digital Foundry. I'm not as techie, but at some points I'm like, well, this is way, like, it's definitely not 30, and it's definitely like, it felt like it was a lot more frames per second on the screen. When there was the big boss battles or the big battles, I could definitely tell, okay, this is 4K 40, but didn't hinder from my experience. I did go out there and do I guess it's checkerboarding, the 120 frames, because my TV can handle it. And a caveat to that, if you don't have the HDMI 2.1 or a TV that can handle it, whatever, man. Like, you don't have it. You're not going to get it. I don't think this is one of the games where, I need to play this in 120 frames per second. And I know that's the big thing nowadays of frames per second in a game. I walked out of this playing at 4K 40 thinking this is the best video game I've played this year, and it's better than its predecessor. You can play at 60 frames per second. You can play at 120 frames per second. It allows you to play whatever you want. I have a funny feeling the way I played the resolution mode, but with the higher frame rates, I think that gets you to 60 because it looked really good, but it can't tell us right now. We don't know. Yeah. I'm sure Digital Foundry will do the whole like look into this and see what the frames are. But at some points, it looked really, really good. I know I messaged you at one point and I was like, okay, they've given us this slider of favoring resolution. So is that upping it? But I also have a feeling that we're definitely going to get that patch later, like Spider-Man, and we'll get our 4K 120. I think my biggest gripe, graphical wise, wasn't the way the game performed. It was the no photo mode. But
yes,
we're getting it after. But still, we don't have it. We don't have it at launch. We also don't have the 4K 120 at launch. So I can't give them a way to go on this one because we don't have those features. But it is what it is. But other than that, I never found any chugging when there was multiple enemies on the screen. I didn't find the reaction time down. There was another an instance where I was texting you and saying, this game doesn't look good. I thought the character models looked great. I don't think it was going to be hard. I don't think you were going to get Horizon character models. Because unfortunately, those unbelievable. But I thought they were good for the setting we were playing in. I still played with that motion blur on. Like you do have all these settings that you can do. There's a lot of sliders in there. I just thought the game looked great. Like the set pieces, the realms, they were like characters themselves. And I didn't find that in the first one. And I also thought they did a great job on the lighting. I saw a comparison actually today of someone who took a screenshot from 2022 and a screenshot from 2018. They shouldn't be doing that, whoever did it. But it did blow my mind of like, yeah, okay, I am seeing this because it just looked brighter, more lifelike.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I thought the game looked fantastic. So I did play on the 60 frames per second mode just because my TV is a little bit older. So I wasn't able to kind of, flush out a lot of the huge graphical stuff. But like playing at the performance mode at 60 frames, the game never chugged. I never ran into any issues whatsoever. It felt stable the entire times. Once you hit that like 40 to 45 frames per second, it looks even like a lot better. It looks much more like 60 than it does 30. So that's almost that like magical sweet spot. So I'm not surprised for you to say that it looked fantastic running at that frame rate because it does make a difference. I was never one that cared a lot about frames. It wasn't until this generation with the 30 versus 60 became very noticeable for me. So playing at the 60 frames again, the game still looked beautiful. There were multiple moments where I was like, where is the photo mode? And I'm not one to play with photo modes, but I was just kind of like, I have to just screenshot this because it's like this vista looks incredible. This area looks amazing. These things that are going on right now just looks spectacular. The game does look incredible in my opinion. And I think it's a huge testament to the way that they were able to take what was already a beautiful game, make it even better. The game looks like amazing. I was never sitting there being like, oh yeah, this looks like a PS3 or a PS4 game. The game looks next gen, especially on PS5. It looks beautiful, and I think they completely nailed that. And especially with the audio design as well. The game sounds incredible. The new scores that are added, everything that they do with the sound design, it sounds fantastic. And I played a mix of, using headphones and just using the TV speakers. Sounds fantastic. The music is epic. It's fantastic. A lot of the voice work is just incredibly done. The game looks and sounds like a next gen title in my opinion, and I think it's just incredibly well done. But Court, we should probably head towards the ending of this conversation because we've talked a lot about what makes this game so special, but hit me with your overall thoughts on God of War Ragnarok.
God of War Ragnarok is, I've said it before, I'll say it again, is better than God of War 2018. All I want to do is jump back into the world. I haven't had a video game in a really long time. Besides MLB The Show, if you listen to the show, I don't stop talking about that. That I've wanted to go back this much. Like I said, usually with story-driven games, you almost feel like wiped. And I didn't feel wiped after. I just wanted to go back in. And I will say this, it's going to shock you, and it's going to make you laugh, and it's going to make you cry. You're not going to see things coming. That was the other thing. As someone that has taken media English classes and such, and I always can see foreshadowing, and I'm sure now if I played through again, I could see some of that, but I wasn't able to guess what was about to happen. I didn't be like, oh, this is going to happen. I was expecting something totally different to happen in the end, and it didn't. And I was like, wow, like they blew me away. And that was, I think, some of the reasons why I came away from this game going how much I loved it, because I was blown away. I was expecting, based on what everybody was already saying, oh, this game looks like DLC. This is the same thing, all that. I was expecting those thoughts go into your head. You can't say they don't. And then after my first 5 hours of playing, I'm like, well, this game's amazing. I can't wait for everybody to play it. Like, it was the first time reviewing a game in a long time that I was wishing I could talk to other people.
Right.
About the game.
I'm 100% with you, dude. I think this is a spectacular achievement. The fact that, again, they took 2018's game and they made it even better, even bigger. And they're, you know what I really appreciated about the game is that they're not afraid to mess with the pacing. They do slow it down pretty significantly at points to let you learn about what's going on a little bit more. The fact that they take a game that was already decently large and make it even bigger. And I think that's a common complaint nowadays, is that so many of these games just get bigger in their next iteration. This actually feels worthwhile for getting bigger. The side content, the stories that they tell, the world that they put you in feels justified in its size. A game is bigger. It is longer than 2018's. But I'm happy about that. And that's the first time in a while with the game that I'm like, I'm glad this is as big as it is, because I'm not ready for this to be over by the time credits rolled. I'm not ready to put this game down yet. I want to go back in. I'm not chasing platinums either, but there are a lot of the side stories and even a lot of the fights that I never wanted to go back to for the original. This game makes me want to go back in and clean that stuff up and go in and just live in that world and across those realms again. God of War Ragnarok is my game of the year. I know it's yours too. It's a fantastic achievement. And similarly, I just can't wait to talk about it. I can't wait to have the conversations about the spoilery stuff that we're not talking about here today, which, you know, maybe we do need to do another conversation, breaking this thing down even more.
We'll wait 2 weeks after the game's out. And
exactly.
We'll do a spoiler cast.
It's just so good. Again, thank you to PlayStation Canada for hooking us up with the codes. We appreciate you very, very much. Are you picking up God of War Ragnarok day one? Have you played the original? Let us know in the comments on your hype check as you come into an incredible experience. Court, thank you so much for rocking with me. If people want to see and hear more from you, where could they do so?
You can find me on Twitter at Court Lalonde. I'm always there. I ain't leaving Twitter.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, we're in it.
I know how to use a mute button. I know it's 2022. It's so hard.
We're in it. Make sure you also go check out Court's other podcasts, including Three Dads and Xbox A. Go support Court in all the places. As for myself, you can find me over on Twitter at Burnett_Matt, at Level 1 Gaming, and of course here, hosting the PlayStation Drive each and every week. We'll be back very, very soon, and we appreciate all of you very, very much. Peace!
As always, we love to thank our Patreon supporters, and I want to start off with our ultimate producers, Robbie Bobby Miller, Tony Baker from Quest 4 Pixels. Please subscribe to youtube.com/Quest 4 Pixels today. Dallas Ford, co-host of The Blaine Game. Support Dallas on YouTube to get these guys to 100 subs. Emily O'Kelly, Trucker Sloth, Jonathan Brown. The new episode from PME is called Gems and is available on Spotify and Apple Music. Lee Navarro, the fearless leader of the Phoenix Overdrive Extra Life team. And honestly, Carpool Gaming's tech support. Links are all in the show notes. Please support these ultimate producers. Platinum producers, Marcus McCracken, RJ Kern and Skinny Matt. Gold members, Anna W., Cicely Caruso, Dallas Robbins, Daresh, Foolish Fuji, Jose Jimenez, Marcus O'Neill, Nagachaka, and the Snack Network. Also, I want to thank our newest patrons, Sean Hennigan and Ryan Craig. Also, I want to thank Tim Paulin for upgrading to Gold member. Thank you very much.